I just found out I have a daughter. It turns out her mother's been lying to her entire life, and she thinks she's the product of sexual abuse by me. Guys, this one's crazy. Let's get right into it. I received an email last week from a woman claiming we are a DNA match and she's my biological daughter. It was a long and emotional charged letter. She said she knew she was child of rape, and while she had no desire to form a relationship with me, she wanted me to know that she existed and to understand the pain and anguish I've caused her and her mother and grandparents. The letter was gut-wrenching. I was shocked but also skeptical. I've been married 25 years and I have 3 great children. I've never sexually abused or abused a woman ever. I thought this had to be a prank or a scam. I've done home DNA ancestry testing 2 years ago, and it's not shown a child that I wasn't aware of. But when I logged into my account, there she was. I did some sleuthing and figured out that her mother was a woman named Terry. I dated for about a month during our first semester in college in the mid-1980s. We broke it off mutually and remained friendly. The very last night of the second semester, we hooked up at a dorm party and went to the room and had sex. It was a casual hookup, and I remember it as 100% consensual and very passionate. Also unprotected. Afterwards, we went back to the party and I had a great time dancing and mingling with friends. We both went home the next morning for summer break. Terry never came back to college the next year, which I gave very little thought of since we weren't that close and had not bothered to communicate all summer. One of the reasons Terry and I were incompatible was religion. She was Catholic and I'm Jewish. I was not religious, but she had grown up in a strict household. My supposition is that when she discovered the pregnancy, she told her family she was raped, rather than admitting to premarital sex with a Jewish ex-boyfriend. But who knows, maybe she had other reasons. It kills me that I have a daughter in her 30s who's been fed lies about her father. I can't imagine growing up thinking I was a product of sexual abuse. That has to be so hard psychologically. I'm in pain for a child and I did not even know it existed just a few days ago. And this child hates me. I've been debating what to do. I've not written back to the daughter. I badly want to tell her the truth in a way that she can believe. But how? My wife has been a rock the last few days and keeps telling me to give this some time and thought. My best friend says I should hire a lawyer. I don't know what to do and it's eating me up. Please guys, give me some advice. Hey guys, Mr. Reddito here. What an insane scenario to be in. There's an update for this and we're gonna hop in that right now. I hired a lawyer. He recommended that I respond to my daughter's email to unequivocally deny the rape allegation. I wrote her a short message and described how and when Terry and I met. I was careful not to attack Terry and to offer sympathy. I explained that our sex was consensual. A week went by, no response. 2 days ago, my daughter wrote me and said Terry now claims she was raped a month after she and I had sex, and that she was told by her doctors that the baby was born premature 8 months. She's basically saying she was misled by her doctors. I find that very hard to believe, but if it's true, it's awful, and if not, I guess it gives Terry a way out without exposing her big lie, which is maybe best for everyone. Yesterday, I spoke with my daughter for the first time. She was crying, and so was I. So it wasn't as easy to say so much. Before we hung up, I told her that I loved her because she's my flesh and blood, and I hoped we could get to know each other and meet my grandchild. She sobbed so much after that, and said she's been waiting her whole life to hear those words. My wife and I told her kids about a week ago. They're teenagers and took it really well. all three are interested in meeting their new sister and niece. My wife, my beautiful, caring, bestest friend ever. She's been nothing but supportive. She's offered that we invite my daughter and granddaughter to visit over the Christmas holidays, even suggesting we pay the airfare and offer them a guest room. My daughter is going to call me again tonight, and I'm going to propose she comes, or offer to fly her if she's more comfortable. We have a lifetime of catching up to do. Meantime, as for Terry, I feel like my daughter and I were robbed, but I really don't want to dwell on it. She hasn't reached out to me, and I don't plan to either, though I'm prepared to be cordial if she does, and to listen to her story and be open-minded. This story was like something straight out of a movie. Guys, let me know what you would do if you were in an OP situation. I hate that this is happening to OP, but it hurts everyone involved. Luckily, OP has a very understanding wife and children that are open to meeting. I think that's really good, and it'll help in the long term. Our next story is about a woman going into labor, and her husband is nowhere to be found. My name's Mr. Reddito. I hope you guys are having a great day. Consider subscribing to the channel, as it's the best way to support me, and it means so much to me. Here comes story number 2. My husband and we got in a fight prior to my daughter's birth a week ago, when he casually suggested a paternity test for our daughter when she's born. To be clear, this was completely out of the blue with no wanting or reason. I'm a homebody who works remotely with no male friends other than my brother. I told him he was accusing me of infidelity, and he just said he just wanted to be sure, and kept bringing it up until I told him, after 3 days of him asking and stress starting to make me physically ill, that I did not want to talk to him and left to my brother's house. I called him while I was gone and tried to work it out, but he refused. After all this, I went home the next day to grab some things while he was at work, and I went into labor. I called him 16 times, before calling my brother, who called him another half dozen times himself, while on the way to pick me up and then on the way to the hospital. It was a horrible and traumatic birth. I started crowning in the car, and the doctor delivered my daughter in the back of my brother's van, because, well, I was too far along to move. Before rushing me in, when I kept bleeding, it was horrible. I hated it all. My brother's wife, who is a nurse, even told me she honestly thought I would not make it. I also opted out for a hysterectomy as it came to that, or something more dangerous. I only ever wanted one or none, but my husband wants a large family. I'm trying to bond with my daughter, but it's hard. The point is that during this, while I was returning from surgery, 10 hours after I called, my husband finally responded and asked why I had not answered his call. However, my brother had my phone and was so angry that he said, "Yo, this is her brother. I'm at the hospital. She did not make it." And then he turned off the phone. My husband rushed over and got there when I've just woken up and started shouting until the security forced him out. And then did not get to see our daughter until the next day because I was mostly asleep, and apparently they need my signature to allow him back in. My sister-in-law thinks it was horribly cruel, but that he deserved it. But my brother stands by his prank and says that he only gave my husband 10 minutes of the same fear he had felt at my side for 10 hours. Whenever he sees my husband, he also keeps telling him that I nearly died because we waited for him. My brother used to be mostly indifferent to my husband, but now he absolutely hates him. You can see it in the face whenever my husband enters the room, and he's been visiting a lot because he does not trust my husband to care for me while I'm still healing. My husband is furious that he won't apologize and that I won't make him, and yelled at me when I said that the only reason my brother had my phone was because he wasn't there. I'm trying to be empathetic. I know he feels guilty. I've spoken to my therapist and she says the apathy I'm feeling is likely general and not solely focused on him for lingering shock from the trauma, but did not say much about the prank. My mother-in-law has been texting me to say that my family is horribly cruel for the prank and that I should go no contact with my brother. And now my husband's saying the same. I just don't know what to do. I'm not in a good headspace. It's been hard to be in the same room with my husband, and I've been sleeping in the guest room with my daughter. He brought up the paternity once, and I just exhaustedly told him to, quote, either get out of my face or go stay with his mother, if he's planning on stressing me out anymore. I really don't feel myself, and yes, I'm taking the likelihood of PPD seriously, and my therapist who had suggested that it may be PTSD. Hey, Mr. Reddito here. There's 2 updates for this story. This next update coming up happens just mere hours after the original post, and then the final update will be an update 3 days later. If you're enjoying this story so far, smash that subscribe button and like button. Here's the update. So, I don't think this will be something we can come back from. I just don't think I'll be able to heal with him, because there's no way he did not know it was me calling. And he still has not told me why he did not answer. I know I thought I would not decide right away, but I actually don't want to forget how terrible it was waiting on him, thinking he could not possibly leave me like this no matter how angered he was. I took the time to think of the moment before it all went down, and just how grossly betrayed and scared and alone I felt. While the contractions were hitting, I was on my knees trying to breathe. It was so much pain just waiting on the phone to go through. And I just don't think there's any coming back from that. I would not want my daughter thinking it's okay to stay with a man who destroyed her trust, and that way either. I'll be contacting an attorney and will be meeting with them in the coming weeks. We had a prenup, so it's hopefully won't be too hellish. I hope. It feels like this situation became even clearer when my friend asked me if I'd still trust him, asked the one to sign off my medical papers, and the reaction of that idea was visceral. I wouldn't, and I want him to get off the legality as soon as possible. In fact, there are roommates I had in college I would have trusted more. I would have never ignored so many calls from him consecutively unless I told him expressly that I was unavailable at a specific time. And well, even then. I feel good with my brother and sister-in-law here with me, especially so with her being a nurse and having been there through the birth. It really helped us bond in a way that we've never really had time to. I've also finally told my friends about the baby, and they're alternating to come and help me out for the next little while. None of this even touched the paternity test, but I'll get for it in the proceedings, I guess. So I guess he'll get what he wanted. Anyways, I'm safe and well, and my daughter is healthy and happy as a peach, and pretty much an angel who is happy to sleep peacefully anywhere, and took the boob with ease. Which is such a blessing since everything still hurts. Just making this decision has taken an odd weight off my shoulders, and my sister-in-law has been really helping us bond. Anyways, thanks for letting me write this out. I'm not good at diaries, but writing to people feels different, and it's actually brilliant for the clarity of the situation. Even my therapist said that I seemed clear and calm. Okay guys, Mr. Reddito here. Like I promised, there's still one more update, and this update occurs 3 days after the original post. Some intro into the case. Popped the paternity test question on me with no reason, who fought for a couple days before I went to my brother's. I was with him 2 weeks and my due date. Went into labor at our house, called him 16 times, brother called him 7 times, no answer. My brother had to pick me up, had a traumatic birth, was bleeding, and was lucky to be conscious enough to sign for myself to get a hysterectomy when things went wrong. Nearly died. He contacts me 10 hours later, unapologetic, has mentioned the paternity test again and this week, and still has not told me why he did not answer. I will now be going forward with a divorce, as I no longer trust him as a partner. We do have a prenup, me with my house and business, and him with money from his family. I do intend on filing for full custody, as I think his reaction, whether spiteful or not, was dangerous. As a father, missing calls 20 plus in a row could have been a life or death situation. Is it always worth investigating infidelity in divorces? If it's suspected, and do any divorce lawyers find this all seemingly suspicious in their opinions? I'll be contacting my lawyer this week, and I'll likely be getting that paternity test for the divorce. So, let me get this straight. The husband was demanding a paternity test with no reason at all. Second, he goes on to miss over 30 phone calls and then has the nerve to show up at the hospital and blame the brother after all the trauma the wife and brother just went through. What do you guys think of this story? I think the only a-hole in this story is OP's husband. I would love to hear from you guys and let me know your exact thoughts on this story. Our next story we're going to look at is, am I the a-hole for laughing in my brother and sister-in-law's faces when they demand to use my credit card? Guys, when I was reading this next story, I could not believe these two people were actually real. Let's check it out. So, I'm 22 female. I don't have much knowledge about finances and stuff as I still live at home as I'm at university. I do, however, pay my parents about 300 euros a month in rent. I pay my own phone plan, buy material stuff that I want or need, pay out of other services like for music or whatever, and just try to put as much as I can in savings while it's still keeping enough in my main account, for day-to-day purchases. Currently, I am saving up for driving lessons, and I hope that if I pass decently, I can use some of my savings towards a down payment on a car. I'm in my final year of university, so I'll be done and able to work full-time when this all happens. I also decided to get a credit card so I can learn how to manage credit. I want to build it up. My credit score is good for someone at my age and my circumstances, but obviously it's nothing great in comparison for other stuff. I should point out that I mostly only plan on using this card with a total adding up to no more than 100 euros. I've stuck to that so far, and I only actually used it twice, with these purchases only being 80 euros. And man, I paid it off quickly. I do not plan on exceeding my limit anytime soon, as I've heard far too many horror stories of people just using their credit cards too much because it's handy, and getting into some bad debt. The only people I disclosed this to was my mom and dad, and they have the tendency to blab to my brother and sister-in-law, who are both 28. She happened to overhear us talking one day, and before I knew it, my brother and sister-in-law got wind and asked me if they could use it. They both admitted that they had debt spurned on by excessive credit card use, and thought that since I basically had nothing owed on mine, it was free money. I told them quite politely that I was so uncomfortable with that idea, and that I would owe the money and I cannot magic up that kind of money. Things went quiet, until a few days later they both turned up at the house. They were nice to start with, but basically started demanding I let them use the card. And they tried to manipulate my mother into guilting me to do it. I got really angry, and when my brother said I owe it to them because they used to babysit me up until a couple years ago, I laughed in their faces and walked out. When I came home, I learned they tried to manipulate my dad, and he kicked both of them out. My mother then tried, and he told her to go, and she's currently staying with my brother and sister-in-law. The only person on my side is my dad, who tells me they're all trying to take me for a ride, and they're trying to manipulate me because I'm young and they think I'm vulnerable. My brother, sister-in-law, and mother, on the other hand, think it isn't a big deal letting someone else use my card. It's really messing with my head, and I just want everyone to stop being in an argument.
Am I the a-hole?
Let's just start off by saying I'm so glad OP had someone she could rely on, her own father, when it turns out her sister-in-law, brother, and mother are all trying to scam her. I hope she does not give in to this, as they're trying to commit fraud using her name and debt. That's so ridiculous and vile, and I truly can't believe there's people like that in this world. Let me know how you guys would handle this if you were young, naive, your first credit card, and what if the father did not intervene? How would this have gone? Drop your thoughts down below. As you guys know, I love reading your comments. Consider subscribing. That's all the content I have for you today. Have a wonderful night, and Mr. Reddito will catch you in the next one. Bye!